can get roll call and verification of quorum.
Yes. Ash Shake,
Here.
Sarah Cornelli,
Present.
Chelsea Campbell,
Here.
Brian O'Connor,
Here.
Lisa Cunningham,
Here.
Bob Broadus.
Here.
Adam Haid, absent. Candace Whitehouse,
Here.
and Ben Hemphill.
Here.
Commissioner, you have quorum.
Thank you. Then I call for approval of the agenda as written. Does anyone have any issues with how the agenda is listed? No. Okay, then before we get started, I wanted to make a quick statement. Since the last, or in the last couple of weeks, I've received a few emails expressing concern over a potential conflict with my work here on this elected commission and my volunteer work with a organization called Being Better Neighbors, which is a local nonprofit. Being Better Neighbors was recently awarded a competitive community grant from the town, and taking this concern seriously, I confirmed through town's legal counsel that there's no conflict, as I do not personally benefit from the grant award, nor was I party to the decision for the grant application. So, just wanted to make that statement. All right. Then as we get started, for public comment, since we're doing something new here for this meeting as a dedicated public comment section, I thought we would do open public comment, keep it open for a while. If no one shows up, we can close for a bit, work on some of the go-backs that we had, and then we'll open back up for public comment at the end for people who couldn't be here at the beginning. That way we make sure we have plenty of time for people to weigh in. So, is that all right with the rest of the board, commission?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Then I'll get ready in preparation for opening public comment. It is now time for public comment portion of the meeting. Please remember that public comment is not an interactive question and answer forum, but rather a time for you to state your comments on a particular item or issue. If you are joining virtually and would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature in the webinar control panel. And if you are using a telephone, press *9. You will be called upon and asked for your full name and city of residence for the record. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person, and you will be given a 20-second warning when your 3 minutes are almost up. At the 3-minute mark, the chair will ask that you wrap up your final sentence, and you may resume watching the meeting or end your participation at the time. With that, we are open for public comment.
The first person on the list is J.C. Moore. If you would.
I live at 905 Taylor Lane in the Vista Point subdivision. I'm a retired consulting structural engineer, and I represented Broomfield's Ward 3 between 1980 and 1985. Broomfield had adopted their home rule charter in 1977, so I'm very familiar with home rule charters. I appreciate you publishing what you've done. I read the entire thing, and I have just 5 comments or 5 suggestions. Overall, I like your home rule charter because it's free of politics and it focuses on how our government should run. In Article 2, I think Erie should be a city. Dacono, Meade, Frederick, Lyons, Milliken, Windsor, they're towns. They're much smaller. We're much bigger than them, over twice as big. Broomfield had 18,000 when it adopted its home rule charter. We're up to 30. We should be a city because we offer city services. So throughout what you're reading, talk about a city council instead of a town council. That's my first suggestion. I also think you should consider using the word wards instead of special districts or council districts. If you're going to divide the city up into 3 or 4 areas by equal population, call them wards, because they're not special. They're, not a district. And of most importance, don't have any at-large members. Broomfield never had it. By having 2 members per ward, every section of the city was equally represented. If we have at-large members, then they have to spend 3 or 4 times as much to campaign than the ones that represent a ward. But they don't have any special privileges if they get elected. So hypothetically, we could have 4 wards and 2 at-large people, and essentially 4 council members from one subdivision. So if you have no at-large members, you also save on campaign expenses, and the whole part of the city is represented. So that's one of my
20
suggestions.
seconds left.
Time's up?
20 seconds.
Okay. I think the council should publish the existence of vacancies, request applications, and conduct interviews. That's in 3.05, and create a new section 3.14,
I'm sorry, sir, time is up.
study sessions. Separate study sessions from executive sessions, because study sessions are for getting information, whereas executive sessions are for just the council meeting on special issues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Kelly Zuniga.
Hi, I'm Kelly Zuniga. Do I have to give my address?
At least your city.
Erie. Town. Yeah, I'm in Kenosha Farm, neighborhood of Erie. I have a background in planning. I have a PhD in planning and landscape architecture. It's just kind of what I do. And I love that there's an opportunity for you to all come together to think about the structure of the governance that helps to promote the vision that the people of the town want to have. And I love you for being out here doing this and serving in this way. Thank you. And I think we all recognize that Erie is in a really interesting position and that it can be a little bit hostile and political. And I love Erie, so it's not critical of Erie, but just recognizing that that is the case. It makes it that much more important, the way that you're forming this structure. And I know that there's a lot of models out there, and there are things that you're doing your background research. I guess one thing is that I really hope that you'll respect the resources that go into government and the people that contribute those. And to me, that's so important. But really, I'm here just to share with you that having a strong planning commission can benefit the city, town, city, whichever you want to call it, in a couple of different really important ways. One of them is that this is a body that is entirely focused on planning and development issues, ideally with backgrounds that support that they're used to looking at plans, that they have been a part of the process in different ways, and that is their focus, so that they're not distracted by 1,100 other things that are going to be coming behind the dais that they're going to have to be making decisions about, but that is what they do. That's one piece of it. The other piece of it is that it provides it can anyway, depending on how you do it, it can provide a balance of power. And when I say this, and I'm saying this in the same context as trying to reduce the politicization of our town, that by dispersing that a little bit and having kind of a check and balance where there's some other body that's looking at something that has some level of authority, that it prevents us from having a situation where every time the town council changes, that decisions are going to swing really far to one side or swing really far to the other, depending on who the new administration is. Having that kind of balance can provide some continuity. And part of that is
20 seconds.
you can have you can introduce the statutory way that planning commission, there's minimal authority that planning commissions have, but there are a number of others that you can have. I would love to talk to you more. I know I have limited time. If you would like to talk to me more at any point, please reach out to me, and I'd love to do it. So, thanks.
Thank you.
And the next person on our list, I am going to butcher the last name. W. Reich? I'm sorry, how do you say it? Reichelt?
Winfried Reichelt. I'm trying to speak loud. First time I'm here, have no idea how this works. Haven't understood half of the things that have been said. Might not be the only one. Bad ears, acoustics very bad. First thing, Mr. Scheik, I didn't understand really what you said about, or not completely what you said about that the city council found that there's no conflict of interest. I guess, as far as I understand, you, I didn't tell you my address. You work for a nonprofit that does things for the city, is that correct? And so I'm wondering why there is no conflict of interest. I think it would hinge for me on whether you get paid at all. People get paid in nonprofits. I've worked in not-for-profit organizations and I got paid. That's one thing. Another thing is this might all be redundant because people might have talked about that already, or it might be totally premature. So when there is discussion about the development of the city, where is this all going? I mean, I see that there is building, and of course people will say, hey, you moved here just last summer. What are you talking about? Is there any great strategy, how much building will be in the town of Erie, how big it will be? How many people will live in that area, I suppose, and again, I don't really know, which is limited because, yeah, I suppose there are city limits, right, town limits. So how many people will live here? Next question, also going in that direction, does the town of Erie have enough water going into the future? Considering how much development there is, that's enough. Those are a couple of things that interest me. Thank you.
Thank you.
And next we have Andrew Sawish.
Andrew Zawish, 824 Dakota Lane. So once again, want to pay my respect and appreciation for all of you and what you've been doing for the town. Greatly appreciate the voting every Thursday since I think it was the first or second week of December. So thank you for the commitment that you've been putting in. The reason that I'm here is to talk about an aspect of something you guys talked about last week that is similar to what one of the other previous individuals had spoken about earlier. There was a comment made last week about a group of individuals, the public residents who would get together to talk about the town and the growth and the aspects of these different applications when it came to land planning and zoning, and really seeing if it fit into the neighborhood. And this is exactly the purpose for a planning commission. One of the other individuals here was talking about what can be done. So I'm going to share with you Greeley. They have a planning and zoning department which was really strengthened through their amendment in 1999 to their charter. The items that they address are tax initiatives, Get Outdoor Greeley strategic plan and household occupancy standards, open space master plan, drainage master plan, engineering development review, short-term rentals, economic health and housing, water and sewer, public facilities, energy action plan, master street plan, the municipal code, Greeley intergovernmental agreements, growth and development projections, strategic housing plan, housing accessibility strategy, transportation master plan updates, wireless communication facilities, designation of commissioners to art commissions, annexations of lands, odor reports, developer contributions and dedications, Air Quality and Natural Resource Commission acts, sign code, community development, redevelopment reports, approval of URA activities, mid-range expected service boundary area revisements, annual growth and development projections, and the list goes on. This is an idea of really strengthening a current quasi-judicial body that the town has that can do these things that you were talking about last week, where they have more emboldenment to them. They have more authorities, more powers and abilities to really look at these different items in a different way. The way that Greeley does it is very different from the way our town does it today. Not just by what the Planning Commission reviews, but also by the actual review of the applications themselves. Currently, everything is done through the Board of Trustees. The preliminary application is reviewed by the Board of Trustees.
20
And then a
seconds.
consent agenda item is for the final application. In Greeley, what they do is that council sees that preliminary application and they have approval, denial of it. And then what they do is they have that final application that goes to the Planning Commission. Something in the way like that, or preliminary goes to the Planning Commission, final goes to the Board of Trustees, has that aspect of power dynamics where one has approval authority
Time is up.
and the other does too. So thank you.
Thank you.
We don't have anyone online and no one else has signed up at this point. You can ask if anyone else in the audience would like to speak.
Anybody else?
Anyone else would like to make any comments?
Oh, all right.
Okay.
Okay?
Now,
Now, you can move on to your next item, yeah.
Okay, so we'll go ahead then and close public comment for the moment, and we can move on to some of our general business.
Should we mention an email address in case they didn't get all of their thoughts?
Oh, yeah, so we'll close public comment for now. We'll reopen again near the end of the meeting to give people a chance who hadn't been able to, log in or come in early enough to get in at the first session. And if you would like, we have our Home Rule Commission page on the town website where all of our emails are written, and there's actually a form to fill out for public comment as well that goes to all of us. So if anyone would like to submit any sort of public comment that way and not publicly, that's also an option. Good. Okay. Okay, then moving on to general business, I guess the thing that we kind of had on the agenda for today was just going back over our previous work. I know Hillary has sent out an updated running draft with all consolidated. So, and we have a large list of go-backs to track. Did anyone have anything that they wanted to bring up from the running draft up to Article 6?
Can you read the stuff that we had already had listed that we were gonna?
The other go-backs?
Yeah. Just
Okay.
to see if there's anything that we want to add to those.
Let's see.
I can't remember, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there were a lot of, I know that Bob has been working on an open space section. We still haven't decided on odd or even years for the elections. Just general order and organization of the charter is still up for discussion. In the finance section, whether we would change the fiscal year, districts, how we want to separate them and how many representatives per or counselors per. A vacancy section. Let's see, how the mayor pro tem would be selected. How are we going to enforce staggering of elected officials? Ethics and transparency section. The redistricting and how district boundaries would be set. seating of new council members. I guess the more on the schedule, whether we go back to November or stick with the later, our first meeting in January. General talk about compensation and secondary benefits, because we had ignored a lot of those when we talked about that. And then town clerk, whether the administrator hires or the council would appoint.
I have nothing to add.
Excellent.
You covered everything in there.
I've been trying to keep
So
notes.
you're not looking for specific comments on any of those right now?
No, just, I think any of the stuff that we've discussed so far, anything from sections 1 through 6, and any of the go-backs, if anyone had additional information to share. I know we've got let's see, the open space section that you had written. Did everyone have a chance to look through that, or did we want to take comment on that?
Are we going to go, I thought we were going to go through that tonight, but maybe not.
Yeah, it was, well, it's new business, and we wanted to keep today mostly towards reviewing old, but
If we have time.
yeah,
I'll just look at the agenda, okay.
exactly.
Just one, well, if we're going to revisit vacancies, then I'll hold my comment.
Okay. I mean, if no one has an issue, we can talk about the vacancy section, because I know we've had some revisions of that going back and forth.
Okay, 'cause one thing well, for Ray to do that, one thing I noticed is it did not have a minimum vote, which I feel strongly about. That someone could get one vote. Talking to the mic, please. Oh, sorry. So in the vacancy section, it did not have something that says, as you're going through the list, a minimum vote. And I think that's important, because if somebody didn't get any votes, I don't think they should be eligible just because they ran.
Okay. I guess,
I think, I just want to jump in. I think so much of this will come also once we figure out what we're doing with our districts, because we're sort of in limbo until we get some other stuff sort of figured out, I think.
okay.
Agreed.
I don't know if that,
I agree.
it's like, where do we start? Chicken, egg, I don't know, but.
Well, and I guess on that, did you guys do your homework?
Yeah.
Does anybody want to share? I don't have to see your artwork or anything, but did anybody want to share what they found or what they thought between the differences? Because public comment did mention it too. So I
Yeah.
think that'd be cool to talk about.
Yeah, so, I mean, did anyone have anything that jumped out immediately when going through the exercise of trying to split out districts or apportion equal size and population, or equal population districts?
Everybody's looking at me, I feel like.
I have to actually thank Ben for his super handy dandy little spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I was able, creating 3 districts, I was able to get it pretty in line. I had 32%, 34%, and 34% with 3 districts. And actually, it was really handy having this tool, because we were looking at the map and I was like, oh no, now we're over too much. And so my daughter actually was one who was helping me. We were looking at it and she's like, oh, well, if we move this neighborhood over to this district, and then it magically worked. So I thank you, Ben, for that very helpful tool.
Glad it was useful.
And I wasn't trying to leave you hanging, by the way, when you reached out. I just figured, because see, when I did it, I was leaning towards 4, made more sense, especially as Erie grows. It would be a lot easier to move, because to avoid gerrymandering, that's supposed to be contiguous or whatever.
Compact,
yeah.
contiguous, and of roughly equal size, right?
And of rough
Or
equal size.
population.
And for me, I'm glad that, like, with the current numbers, that's amazing, because I was not trying to get that in depth, because it wasn't really our job to, like, draw the actual ones. It's to figure out 3 or 4, what makes more sense. And to me, as Erie grows and develops and we, infill or even fill on the outskirts, for me, it was 4. So,
And when you say 4, are you saying 4 with at large, or 4 and change the council size?
see, that's now up for debate too, because as public comment had mentioned, JC had mentioned, I mean, if you do have at-large people, then you can have people that are,
It's a much
grouped.
larger campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you have unequal representation, which I don't think was something that I personally thought about before your comment today, so thank you for that. I actually think 3 with 2 each would be ideal, but I'm gonna have an unpopular opinion here. I almost think that we should just leave it at large, all of it.
I would actually agree with that because when we looked at the maps during our last meeting, and Spring Hill, Morgan Hill, and Parkdale all had 0, and we asked how many numbers? It was 1,000 each. We're going to be and this is a 2-year difference between 2020 and 2022. We're going to be redistricting multiple times
Yeah.
in probably the next 15 years. And by leaving it at large, you don't have to redistrict. But if we can have this, if this charter is approved, it allows future generations or future residents to amend it and decide to have districts at that point. So that's
And so just leave it up to the electorate to determine representation, in essence.
in essence. And at a certain point, the growth is it's not gonna be growing as quickly. And then they can revisit
Yeah.
through an amendment to decide that they want districts.
Yeah, where it really changed for me was the whole reason that I was backing districts was specifically for representation in Old Town. And I think that when we have to follow the legal rules, that doesn't really give them that much representation, I don't think. And that's where it kind of switched for me. And also, it makes it a lot cleaner and easier to fill those vacancies when everybody's at large. So I was just thinking about all those
I'm
things.
going to very politely disagree with you. Not so because of the Old Town aspect of it, but when I actually sat down and I was looking at the maps, and I'm telling you, like, we spent a significant amount of time on this project. This was not just a glance over. I think the districts are important for the representation. Not just Old Town, but like Brian mentioned, we've got new communities coming in. And no offense to any of the current sitting trustees, but when we have everybody at large, it seems to be there's a certain, you have the possibility where a heavily amount of representation comes from a particular neighborhood or a particular part of town. So having those districts actually could enhance that broader spectrum of representation that we were looking for. I don't think it's that difficult. I think we're probably overthinking it. I think that, I know the concern there is for gerrymandering, and I think, as long as we're careful about what we do and our suggestions, I honestly, truly, wholeheartedly believe it can be done, and I believe it can be done correctly.
Well, and you had stated that you were able to pretty evenly divide it up with 3 right now. Is there the possible to keep the same council size, keep 3 districts, and leave it a way in the charter for them to be able to add a district if it becomes necessary, and add more council members should it become, or are we just stuck with,
You amend the home rule charter.
Yeah.
You amend the charter, that's.
that's
allowed.
what would it,
Or you-
and that is
I mean,
allowed, yeah,
Or you leave it to ordinance.
okay.
Allow ordinance to add or
Yes.
to add districts.
And that was one of Hillary's comments, is about how you get started.
Yeah.
Do you do it by ordinance?
I'm pretty personally, strongly, very for equal representation across the town and it not being at large.
And when you look today, I know there's at least 2 neighborhoods that each have 2 trustees today. And so it's not geographically balanced, whether or not it's philosophically balanced or whatever you want to do it, is always going to be up for debate. So,
Well, and I mean totally, because I mean, if you look at who's in Old Town, there's a lot of the people that have been here for a long time, you know what I mean? So definitely philosophy would be more representative if they had a better chance to get.
well, one question which I should have asked in the past is, has anyone done a study to show where people have been running from? Is it that people have run from Old Town and just haven't been elected? or that nobody's run from there?
There've been a few, and I think Adam touched on this in one of the previous meetings. They didn't run a very active campaign.
So,
And I'm not, and I know I'm partial to Old Town, I know. The problem of Old Town. It's okay. And it's not just Old Town. I think honestly, to Adam's point that he made me think a few meetings back, is that you have to have people who run.
yep.
And who are willing to run a campaign. So I don't think there's going to be anything perfect we can do. The nice thing about this is it actually is not etched in stone. So if we do our best for now and we find out, 10, 20 years down the road that, our kids are going, oh my gosh, what the heck were you thinking?
They'll do that anyway.
Yeah.
already are.
It is, something that can be adjusted later on down the road.
Yeah, to that point, I actually am slightly concerned that when you force districts, will there be a pool of candidates when we see, and that would be an interesting study, Bob, is to see where do people typically come from when they come to campaign. If we are forcing people to only live in certain spots, what happens if we don't have somebody run for one of the districts? That's a real possibility.
We already have, there are 10,000 odd people in a district. If we did 3 right now, I'd imagine there'd be 2 people who'd want to represent.
Yeah.
I mean, we had 18 people run for this board.
Yeah, I'm not as worried about getting the people to run. I go back and forth, though, on why it is like it is today. And candidly, most large places, I mean, all the federal and state things are by wards or districts. And I don't know of any state that does things that large. In fact, I know there aren't. And of the large municipalities in Colorado, I don't know, I haven't looked candidly, but I believe most were subdivided. I don't know, Malcolm, if you know?
I believe that's the case, but that's
Yeah.
just my belief. I haven't studied it.
Same with me, yeah.
I support what Lisa and Sarah are saying about diversity in the council. I think that there are very few guarantees for the future in the work we're doing, but I feel like setting, a quantity of districts at least improves the opportunity for equal and diverse representation. Again, we can't control the outcome or who runs, but I feel like we're helping our chances for that goal.
A jumping off
separating.
point, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah.
So if we did stick with 3 districts and wanted to do equal representation and all of that, how would we write in, would we keep the wording we have for forestry districting if one grows with plus or minus 10% of the others, then we trigger redistricting?
I think that's required. by
Yeah,
law.
there's a legal
Okay.
requirement that we would have to follow.
If I might, the Louisville Charter has a very concise section that describes how to do it, just 4 paragraphs.
For the forestry districting?
Correct. Right. They have 3 wards, and they must be within 5% of each in terms of population, and they do, following the census, they revise it if necessary. And having gone through that once, it was a relatively easy process.
Okay.
But they're basing it just on the census, so every 10 years?
Right, they do have a provision that provides for maybe change more frequently than necessary to conform to applicable constitutional requirements or to keep within that 5% requirement.
Now, was that in the charter or was that in their ordinance?
It's actually in the charter, but they set the boundaries of the wards by resolution. So when the population changes and after the census, they study that, and they use a consultant. The consultant comes up with different options, and then the city council adopts the changes to the wards by resolution.
Dan, for those who have it up, it's in section 6.4. Now I found it.
And typically, do you have a sense of the cost of redistricting
I'm guessing it's less than $50,000.
each? Okay.
Every 10 years.
Right.
And they use a 5% difference, and they also have 3 wards.
So, I mean, if we're only basing it off of census data, like the speed with which Erie is growing, right? Would we have to enforce like a more frequent, like internal population check?
You're looking at me. I'd say in Erie's case, the population, if we're continuing to grow at the current pace, we're adding probably at least 1,000 people every year. So depending on where they go, you could trigger a percentage change in 2 or 3 years.
But yeah, how would we know that that has happened without a census to give us that?
Census publishes preliminary data every year.
Right.
I think, is that what you would use?
Well, the state
Yes.
demographer's office actually publishes, or Department of Local Affairs publishes an annual update. It's an estimate, but it generally is relatively accurate. And our planning department it knows where all the new permits are going in and new houses are going in. We have rough estimates of how many people are in each house based on averages from past history. So we could probably keep relatively close tabs on that through the planning department.
And is that stuff
we-
you already collect, or would that be extra effort?
We do that now for development referrals when they come in, because we have to know how much open space they need, for example,
Okay.
and that's based on population.
Does anybody feel strongly about 4 districts? Just curious.
I think I like 2 representatives per district.
So 3.
Again,
So if we did 4, I'd be happy to go to a 9-member council,
and that's how I feel.
I agree.
but I'm happy with 3. 3 districts works for a lot of other communities with many other larger populations.
And it seems,
Keeps the districts larger, which gives more population, which gives more people into the
Larger pool.
the pool.
and it also would make it, I think, statistically less likely to have to redistrict more often.
Remember, we can always adjust it later.
Yeah.
Well,
We do
and
have to
I'm-
make a decision at some point.
Well, I
Because
know.
a lot of it
I
hindered.
think we need to make a decision, and I think we probably should make one sooner rather than later, rather than just keep dancing
We
around.
have to start making decisions.
Do we want to vote on this?
I feel like we should vote on this to
You
get a
could-
good stand of where
you could-
we currently are.
Let's say you could do 2 votes. First one being at large versus districts, and the second one is 3 districts or 4 districts.
I would go the other way, number first, and then we can decide if we wanted to maintain any at-large.
Didn't we already vote if we were doing districts? That's why it's still in here?
We did, but it's still continually.
We left it open.
Yeah, it's
We voted
an
and said
open
revisit it.
Non-committal vote.
We never
So I
decided
think,
how many.
yeah. And to Candace's point, this will allow us to get other things settled.
Yeah.
It should be done.
Sort of holding us back.
Okay. Then let's start with the vote for 3 versus 4 to start?
Well, the first one was at no districts versus.
No, okay, yeah, no
At
district.
large.
That's what okay, sorry, I misunderstood. So does anyone want to vote for no districts, everyone at large?
I do.
I do.
2, okay. 3 districts?
Versus 4, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's unanimous.
Yeah.
Good job, team.
All right,
Thank
let's
you for
move
your
on.
comment, because you did bring up some good points and
Thank
that
you.
we hadn't quite considered, so thank you for your comment.
And then, do we want to revisit district versus ward?
I don't think that's necessary right now.
I think once we go
Fine.
back at the end for our final, like,
Yeah.
rearranging everything
Okay.
and specific wording, but
We have way bigger fish to fry right now, I think.
I think it'll be easier to keep referring to them as districts because that's what we've been doing.
We were kind of happy with the terminology of districts.
Yeah, we did have a discussion.
Not quite.
Not quite.
Nothing's out.
Yeah.
Nothing's out.
One thing, after our discussion on districts, I had a thought, and I sent this to Ash, just to mainly remind myself. The board has to approve a district, or approve the district boundaries, and a concern I have is a board, or I guess a council dragging their feet on approving that. So I wasn't sure if there could be some wording that forces something, I don't know. It's still an open question, to make sure that the district boundaries would be drawn within 180 days of an election.
Right. To give time to make sure that
To give time to make sure everyone knows what they're doing.
what district they're in and
And-
who they're voting for.
The clerk can handle all that, so I just wanted to bring that up as a possibility of forcing,
You know, there should be some timeline
Yeah.
that they have to follow.
of how that works.
And if they don't adopt it, then what happens? It
And maybe
automatically
Hillary
get,
can comment on that next week, if that's a statutory piece, or what happens if they aren't approved, if the boundaries aren't approved. So,
So you want to make sure there's some method of enforcing an establishment of boundaries, even if the council is dragging their feet.
yeah.
What Louisville says, the revision shall be completed within 1 year after the,
Census.
well, that's for the census, but I would think it would be for both.
Yeah, for us, it would be anything that triggers a
Right.
redistricting.
Well, this is about having it done 180 days before an election.
Ah,
Right, because you're going to have
Yes.
representatives.
good point.
So
Very good point.
if it's in an off election year, it doesn't really affect that, but it needs to be done,
Yeah,
but it's not as critical.
okay. So I guess with a decision for 3 districts and 2 per, correct? 2 per district, and then mayor at large. Okay. That's one of our things off our plate, and we can start settling other things. Did anyone else have anything that they wanted to bring up as far as the running draft?
On that topic, should the initial districting, this is one of Hillary's comments, whether it was done by ordinance or by the charter. My personal preference would be ordinance.
Yeah, I don't want to draw, I've seen some of them, like, some of the other smaller towns, they've had, like, their districts laid out, like, east of this street, north of this street, and I think that just clutters it up, especially with how quickly we're changing.
Right.
So I think I'd be okay with the initial district boundaries being ordinance-based.
Yeah, her comment was on 302.1.
But who's going to create that ordinance?
We'd have time,
It'd
right?
be, I guess, part of the transition.
Right.
Transition
I think
section
the
would have to
transition section
define.
is going to be doing a lot of work for that.
Yeah. Because we'd have to have those in place before the first council is elected. Yeah. Probably
That's-
fall to some measure of town staff to draw the initial boundaries.
I think I saw some charters in the transition, they had like effectively a board like this that was put together, maybe appointed by the current group to draw the districts. So something like that, I think has happened. So it's been done in other charters, so we should look at that.
I mean, rather than select all new people, wouldn't it make sense for this group to do it?
It could be for like the purposes of the first election in the transition section.
Yeah, I
right?
mean, I guess we don't need to figure this out until we
Yeah.
figure out odd years, even years, what the transition looks like and stuff, but something to think about, that it may fall back on us to draw these initial lines.
Okay. That's a good point.
I think you're setting yourselves up to be appointed as a task force.
Okay.
Go, Candace.
I'm just gonna go.
Unless we vote by ordinance.
Okay. Did anyone have any other issues or concerns to raise with the running draft?
Well, don't we just have a list, your running list? Should we just be like,
You want to see which ones we can knock out now that we've decided?
Vacancies may be a logical next step, now that we've decided this.
Okay.
Just
Yeah.
a thought.
I agree.
Full of vacancies.
I agree,
Let's
and I
do-
think that's a big one, so.
It is.
Okay,
And
so,
it makes it easier if everyone's in a district.
Yeah.
I think we've mostly covered that, I think.
let's see.
We have, I think, a lot of the debate was whether or not we would have people at large and things like
Right,
that.
Yeah.
exactly, that's my point, yeah.
So it
Yeah.
is pretty much settled,
Okay,
from
So
what I
that's-
remember.
So it was vacancy within 6 months,
180
right?
days, right?
yeah, within 180 days of the election, a vacancy would then start going down the list of candidates
Within that district.
with a certain number of, with a
As
certain number
long
of
as
votes.
there's a minimum, and again, I think as long as there's a minimum number of vote, or percentage of votes
Yeah.
Which
for
would-
that candidate.
Which would be what? Like, what are you proposing for that? I'm not disagreeing, I'm just
No, no,
curious
no,
what
I
you're.
would say,
Something like 10%
10
of
to
the votes
20%,
cast for
somewhere
that
in that
district.
Well, that or you take a percentage from the winning, the winning candidate.
that's
So
right.
if they had 50% of the votes, the other ones all had to be within 20% of that, or 10% of that, or some sort of margin.
yeah,
You mean like a band around the winning vote?
Yeah.
right.
Oh, if someone got 50, then there's a lot less for any subsequent candidates, so the chances are higher that you'd end up with most
Right.
of the other candidates outside that bound. So I would suggest something more along the lines of, like, X% of the votes cast in that district. Like,
I
of the
agree.
ballots cast, not votes. 'Cause
It's just
everyone-
easier,
Yeah,
but,
Yeah.
but I do understand what Brian's saying, and
yeah.
it does make sense on a level that if there's 50% less left, and so there's more chance that someone would get, well,
I mean,
they
what if
still could end up
someone's-
with down to 10%.
Someone's really popular and they get 90% of the vote.
Right, that
That
means
means
no one
that-
else
We're not
is,
gonna have anybody else. Yeah, I think there should be, I agree, a minimum % of the total vote for that
okay.
ward or district.
Which I guess if someone was really popular, or that other candidate was extremely unpopular.
Right. So, why don't I throw out 15% and see what people think?
15% of ballots cast in that district.
Right.
I think we talked, like, I feel like Hillary mentioned something about what's typically used and what's the threshold, and I can't remember what she'd said.
I don't remember that. but-
Yeah.
We have a number in this one, the one that Brian sent out.
Yeah, it says 10%
It says
ban,
10%.
Right.
but that's within
It's
10%
within 10%
range
of
of
the
the.
other.
Oh, the winning candidate. Well, maybe
Yeah.
Well, you could
rephrase that a little bit.
Yeah.
Tweak that.
It was, a lot of that was just thrown out there just
Yeah.
to get a discussion going about this process.
I feel like 10 or 15% is a healthy minimum requirement. I
'Cause
mean,
if what-
it's negligible between those two.
What are we talking about, what are the numbers we're talking about, I guess, at our current size then? Because we've got.
So if it's 10,000 people, which, I
10,000
don't know what
people.
percent would be registered voters, because they're kids, obviously.
We're pretty high, though. We're at something, like Colorado's like 85 or 90% registered, right?
Yeah, but then
No,
you
no.
also have turnout, and
Or,
our
yeah.
turnout is anywhere between 35 and 45% typically.
In 2020, there were 6,200 votes cast in Erie.
Ballots,
Yeah, that was the votes counted,
6,200 in all of Erie.
and that was 33.8% of the population.
And you figure 20%
So for,
or 30% are minors? I don't know. do
well,
we-
no, 62, if you got 6,200 ballots, right?
Yeah, that would be-
Separated into three, you've got about 3,000, or sorry, 2,000.
2,000 each.
I'm good at math. 2,000 ballots per
So 10%
district.
is 200.
Yeah. So someone with at least 200 votes in a district,
And 15% would be 300, so,
yeah. I'm good with either.
yeah, so am I.
Maybe we can
I mean, in
ask Hillary.
2022, there were almost eight,
Ask her, put it,
12.5.
in 22, there were
Split the
almost 8,000 ballots counted.
Yeah, so we have more in the
2020
election
was
years.
definitely the low end, but
So we do have more in the election
The
years.
federal election years, yeah.
So I almost wonder then, does that make the case for even?
Going to even or odd.
We can go back to that
Skipping
now.
ahead.
Either way, I think whether it's even or odd, I think still a percentage
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think let's stick with percentage and then we can,
I think
Try
we
to
should
figure
stick
out.
with 10 for now and chat with Hillary about it.
okay,
Okay.
Sounds good.
Because
I'm good with that.
if, in the event that we don't have anybody to take that spot, then we trigger, what, a special election or whatever we're gonna discuss next. So let's try to avoid that situation
Okay, that's fair.
if we can.
I just wouldn't want to go below 10, so.
Yeah.
That's all.
I don't disagree.
You need at least 200 people to like you.
I think
My
more so
mom,
that's to
my
like
dad.
avoid someone writing in themselves and being like the one vote
Yes.
for themselves. And then they're on the list, right? So,
That's true.
I hadn't thought about that. That would be creativity, wouldn't it?
you get to write in. Okay, so for now, we'll stick with a 10% of ballots cast threshold to be part of the automatic appointment process. And then after that, I think, what does it go to? Down the list until all have been exhausted.
Here we go, so it's 305 is the section.
Well, I'm looking through the email that I guess Brian sent out to the group, right? With the modifications to what Adam had written.
It's,
Did she put it in?
Put it
Oh.
in there. So it's on page
Yeah,
6.
305. Okay. I guess starting from 305 subsection, let's just start from the beginning and go down the list then. So town council has authority by appointment to fill vacancies,
Wait, what are we looking at?
305 in the running draft. Is there multiple three? Oh, no.
I guess I have the wrong running draft. Okay.
Yeah. I know there's some numbering repeats in here. I think we have two section 302s, so.
We still have last week's open. Okay, go on.
Okay, so 305, person appointed shall hold office only until successor is chosen by voters at the next regular election. So, do we want to stick with that? Like, no matter what, even if they were the next highest vote getter in a regular election, do we want to make that appointment? I guess only as, let's see. Yeah, so that would mean even if someone resigns and the next person is appointed, then they are only sitting until the next election, even though we're doing 4-year terms. So they'd only be sitting for 2 years. Everyone good with that?
I'm good with
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
That was my note.
Then subsection 1, mayor council submits a resignation in writing to the town clerk or fails to meet the requirements to hold office. And so that would also be then, like, that would be triggered by if a person is found to have moved out of their district or whatever. That would trigger a vacancy.
Correct.
Okay. Anyone have any issues with that wording?
I don't.
Okay. Subsection 2, at the first town council meeting following receipt of such resignation or following circumstances that disqualify the mayor or council member from holding office, town clerk shall declare a vacancy. And then if the vacancy is declared within 180 days or fewer before the next regular municipal election, the seat shall remain vacant until a successor is chosen by the voters at the next regular municipal election duly takes office. So if it's less than 180 days till the next election, seat stays open, voters get to choose their next representative.
I think the only thing with that is, I don't know if you can't declare a date that, you know, if it's, where did I have it? May 1st.
Right.
Instead of counting 180 days, but for whatever reason, she changed it, so maybe you can't
Yeah,
have a specific date in there.
We can ask about that, because that stuck out too, because I thought if we had a hard date, it's a little easier to,
Yeah, there's no, that's it.
Is that
No
just
counting
because
days.
election day?
yeah,
could
because
be-
election moves.
Well,
But
I think-
it won't move more than like the time frame won't move more than
Is-
like 2 weeks. in
Right,
either
I wonder
direction.
if that's like a legality. I don't know.
Either do I. Yeah,
We'll have to
just-
ask.
yeah.
Hillary.
I know
jot that
it was
down.
like, what was it, like a matter of months, and wasn't it you that had her break it down 2 days specifically? I thought.
Yeah, I put it in there just
Yeah.
to give it a hard date.
But now you want a hard date, right?
No, well, I had.
May 1st?
That's around 180 days.
Yeah,
so
no, I
figured-
know, I know.
Yeah,
I'm with you, I'm just, yeah.
it's interesting that she took that out, yeah. I would like to know the reasoning of that as
Yeah.
well.
I'm good either way, though.
Okay.
I'm fine with 180 days.
I'm fine, 180 days.
I don't think it's that confusing. Is that the concern, or it's May 1st, or it's not May 1st?
Well, and I think too, like, if,
What happens if that 180 days falls on a weekend or something?
what happens if May 1st does?
That's true.
Yeah, I mean,
That's always going to be an issue.
and that way, if we leave it
That's the
180
thing.
days and for whatever reason they change the date of the election again to go April, not saying they will, 180 days means you want to make that change.
We could make it
somewhere else.
the first Monday after May 1st.
Well, in Article 2 for elections, we use day counts for a
Right.
few provisions there, so that would keep
So
it
it's just
consistent.
consistency.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Hillary has a question then for subsection 4 about if the mayor is vacant, Mayor Pro Tem gets appointed as mayor, but then what happens to the Mayor Pro Tem's
I think we should
vacancy?
follow what's in 311A,
Doesn't the
just the
council?
initial appointment. The council,
Council elects.
whenever the mayor pro tem
But like,
becomes
but now he
vacant,
doesn't have, there's no, like, he used to be a counselor and now he's mayor.
right,
So now there's a vacant council seat.
Right,
Right.
so then
So,
council votes to make
the
it
council votes.
for another new mayor pro tem. And then that seat then becomes vacant and then you follow the vacancy.
right.
Following the same process.
I think it should be the same process. I don't see any reason for it different.
Okay,
Does anybody disagree with that?
no, it was
Look
just
at us.
decisions.
We just needed that one domino to fall.
We did.
Them.
Peer pressure.
Well, I think it helps, like, and I hope people are watching online and stuff, because it really helps to hear from members of the community.
Yeah,
I agree.
Because we really do want to make this for the town or city of Erie. And, yeah, I think,
yeah, we're not deciding things for ourselves, right? We're deciding things
Right.
for people here, everyone sitting at home, hopefully watching, and people not watching, going about their lives. So we're not trying to decide everything for everyone. We want input.
yeah.
And so, and we haven't thought of everything. There's 9 of us on the commission, but we're still just 9 individuals. We haven't thought of everything. And
So
so,
tell your neighbors. Get them down here.
or yes, fill out the form online if you
Well-
don't want to come to a meeting.
Yeah, there's that. Anybody
Because, yeah,
can,
that goes to everyone, and we all bring it up at our next meeting and discuss what was in those comments, so. Okay, then the subsection 5, if there's more than 180 days until the next election, but within 60 days of a vacancy being declared, then they will appoint someone? Am I reading that right?
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah,
as limited below.
yeah. Shall be if there's, okay, yeah, so that's where we talk about, you go down the list of the candidates from the most recent election. Based on tally of votes cast. Okay, so then the question comes down to, I guess, what Hillary has highlighted. If no prior unsuccessful candidate is qualified or willing to accept appointment, then council shall order an election. Is that what we want to stick with? So if there's more than 180 days until the next regular election, we have a vacancy, then we would trigger a special election.
yeah, because I think even when we were having that discussion, Malcolm had mentioned that sometimes the next person down doesn't even want to run.
Yeah.
Or doesn't even want it.
anymore.
So you'd have to anyways.
Well, you don't have to do an election. You
Yeah.
can do an appointment.
Yeah. the
That was
council-
Hillary's first comment, was that we could open up that opportunity to appoint.
I think one thing that would help, sorry to cut you
No,
off.
I interrupted you.
Is if there was a clause that the council has to have an ordinance of how they're appointing it. So these are the rules of the appointment, and that's an ordinance that must be made before you can appoint someone. So then it's clear what they're looking for.
Why wouldn't we just put that in the charter?
I think it should
What
be in the charter.
appointment process is.
Well, we could do that too.
I think that would be best.
Yep.
If we're gonna go the route of appointment versus special election.
But then how much detail do we go into? Because I think the last time we had a vacancy on the board and an appointment.
Do we have any other charter that they
Yeah.
did define what the appointment process looks like? Has anyone seen that anywhere?
I don't think.
I
it's-
haven't, so I'm
Yeah.
genuinely inquisitive on.
Malcolm, are
if
you
there's an
aware of any?
example.
I'm sorry.
Any other charters that have a defined, like, appointment process for vacancies?
I believe the Louisville Charter does. Let me do a quick check.
That one has everything.
It's impressive.
It's very detailed.
I don't know.
It's got a lot of things you don't want also.
Yes.
Let's see, Louisville.
I'm just impressed that you memorize like all these charters well enough to just be like, oh, this one.
The
mean,
one I'm most familiar with. 'cause I
It
worked
sounds
there
like
for
if you
10
just say
years.
Louisville, you're going to be right 90% of the time anyways.
I like my odds.
Vacancies.
I guess while you guys are looking that up, I kind of feel like a situation like that where the person doesn't want to take it up, I almost feel like it's worth the money of a special election and giving it back to the people.
I don't disagree at all.
Yeah.
I would agree.
I mean, because we're looking up the terminology and everything, and again, I mean, in this case, the appointment, you know, there was somebody with the next votes or whatever, and it made sense.
Right.
But-
Because it was within a
Right.
month of an election or
Right,
something.
and I think that the situation would be so rare that it would be worth a special election, it would be worth the cost for that, rather than,
Well, what did Debbie or Hillary say, that there's a vacancy like every year?
Yeah, and what if?
Yeah, there can
and-
be.
Is that not?
And what if, do we hold a special election to only appoint someone to like, maybe only be there for a year or less, like depending on when the next regular election is?
Amy, you were gonna give some insight.
I don't recall that we've had 2 resignations. I've been here 15 years, and we had 2 resignations recently, and then one left because he moved out of the city, out of the town. So I think it's not accurate to say we have a vacancy every year.
I remember a comment that vacancies occur more often than we were anticipating.
I think she was talking, I think Debbie was talking about a different city.
Maybe her
Yeah.
time in Boulder then.
Yeah. Where it could be, you could have a vacancy fairly often.
Yeah.
And,
But somebody who doesn't fill in the seat, or is there normally somebody who will fill in the seat? You know,
yeah, I don't know how their vacancy process works. Okay, so does anyone feel strongly for special election versus a defined appointment process?
I prefer
I'm-
special election.
I prefer special election if there's not like a
Right.
next obvious person.
Right.
I would agree.
You think so? Okay.
I mean, unless we can define that appointment process, but that's where the system
Yeah.
Breaks down.
breaks
yeah.
down.
Yeah, that's where it becomes difficult to put something in that's flexible enough to stand the test of time.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we could revisit this.
Yeah.
If someone comes up with an appointment process.
Yeah. Just let's not hash it out here.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, so we'll just do a special election. And then Hillary asked if this should apply to the mayor as well. So if like the mayor, basically if the same thing happens, mayor is vacant, do we just go through the list of unsuccessful mayoral candidates?
I I'm hesitant on that one.
Yeah, me
I
too.
think you have to go for a special election on that one.
I mean, like, if
Or
you're.
do you move
Well,
mayor
we
pro
said
tem?
mayor
I was
pro
gonna
tem.
move Mayor Pro
I thought we
Tem.
said Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would move
Okay,
mayor pro
yeah,
tem
okay, sorry, you're right.
and open the vacancy for the council.
I agree.
Okay.
And then the question is, do they fill the full term or until the next regular election? I would think
Next
until the next
The
regular
next
election.
regular election.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyone think differently?
Well, they may hate it and be like, I just want to be a regular council person again.
That's the unwilling to
So-
fill the position, though.
Well, he's mayor pro tem, like,
That's true. Comes with the title, right?
yeah.
I
Don't
would hope they
accept it if
wouldn't
you're
run
not
for mayor
willing
pro
to
tem.
Right.
You'd hope.
Yeah.
Okay, so if a special election is ordered, then it shall be subject to municipal election code and held as soon as practical to fill the vacancy. So this was where we came into that discussion about the legal weight of words, like as soon as possible or as soon as practical. And I think,
One concern I have is if someone resigns April 30th, that triggers a special election. So you have an election in what, May? And then you have
I
an
think we
election in
gave 60
November?
days, right? For special elections? Or at least we discussed
Well,
it before, yeah.
So, but then you hold a special election.
No, we're saying more, you're talking about 5A, right?
Probably not.
Oh, okay. Because 5 starts off saying more than 180
Probably going
days.
back to 4,
Oh, okay.
but just about the special election, I guess it was swerving off, but. I
No,
thought
4
I had-
says it'll be the mayor pro tem until the election if it's within 180 days.
I guess in general, if there's a person who resigns very close to that 180 days, you have a special election that's a few months out from a general election,
Yeah.
I,
potentially.
would the amount of days matter for a mayor?
No, I think for a
I-
mayor, we'd want one as soon as possible,
Yeah,
right?
mayor pro tem steps in immediately regardless of
Right.
how many days are left
And then to
until the
fill-
next election.
Yeah. And I guess if,
And then
yeah,
you may or may not fill the vacancy created by the mayor pro tem moving into mayor, depending on how many days are left. Right?
yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
answer your question or your concern?
No, I think I took us off topic slightly.
Happens.
But that's not what 5 says, so we should change 5 a little bit.
You're right.
And that was her point about defining a mayor vacancy different than a council vacancy.
Right. So I think we should say in 5, if it's the mayor, it becomes the mayor pro tem until the next regular election.
Yeah. I think, yeah, that's probably safe to say mayor is replaced by the mayor pro tem, regardless of time since the election.
So
And then
that
the
means
other-
4 needs to be changed.
Piece of this, and I don't know if this is later on, I can't remember honestly, but assuming Mayor pro tem then becomes mayor, do we feel okay saying the council can then decide who will be their new mayor pro tem?
Yes.
Yeah, because it
Okay.
would follow the same process of the
Okay.
initial mayor pro tem selection, which is a
Yeah, so I
vote
think-
by the council.
So I think in 4, and maybe we should just separate mayor from council member totally,
So have
independent of the number of days, is what I think you were saying anyway.
So, but that's what 4 says, is that, so
Yeah.
yeah, so vacancy of mayor it should ignore the time frame.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have to have a mayor.
okay. So always goes to the so. Yeah, so 305 is town council vacancy, so we can leave all this and then break out the mayor and just say if a vacancy is declared in the mayor position,
Right.
mayor pro tem becomes. And then follow this section
Well,
to fill the vacancy of.
Yeah.
council also includes mayor.
So it's just taking out,
That's true.
well, no, just leave 5 for to be council member and take out the time frame in 4.
Yeah,
Yeah. So take out or mayor in 5.
okay. I got it.
And I hate to say it, but her comment for 5 has even numbered. So we would make that decision before we can address our comment.
Yeah. Okay. I guess moving on. Does anyone have anything else going through the rest of section 3?
Three eight, and I wasn't here when you, last week, so if you had talked to us or not, I'm not sure that we really want the code of ethics, conduct ethics, be written by the town council. Did you discuss that?
We did, and we were leaning towards, I think even Ash said he wanted a code of ethics that had teeth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I agree.
Almost
I think-
verbatim.
I think, yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think the general, like, that's kind of one of the things that I was tracking as a, to go back, is an ethics section
Yes.
that defines.
agree.
Yeah.
Who was the one, what city or town had the ethics
wanna-
section on steroids? It was Louisville, was it?
A lot of them,
Yeah,
actually, I think several of them had
That's
ethics.
hilarious.
I think it's really long.
I'm sure
it had a
is.
lot of, it has a lot of good parts, it's just,
It had things.
there's a
that-
lot.
There's a lot. They missed nothing, and they did it all in 180 days, eh? A lot.
Yeah.
A lot of them have ethics sections. Severance, Eagle,
Sections
Yeah.
5.6 through 5.17 shall be known as the Code of Ethics
Louisville,
in Louisville.
Silt,
That's a lot of ethics.
Parachute. Just about
Yeah,
all
I
of them
found
had
it in a lot of them. Because,
Well, I
It's
think,
just about all of them. Well, half of them.
sorry.
it's all right.
I think because the most common sense thing for a code of ethics is it should be set and not by the people who are
gonna
gonna
be following
Yeah,
it.
I think
Right.
everybody sat there and was like, yeah, we're gonna have a code of
I
ethics
just noticed it was in
section.
here and I'm like, huh? All right.
Yeah. That was one of the things too that we were hoping to solicit some public comment on, is the
Yeah.
code of ethics and what the general sense among residents is as far as like transparency and ethics.
Good. Then my next comment was on compensation.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like we changed it to say by ordinance rather than setting a default, an initial figure and then raising by cost of living or whatever. Right now it just says it's going to be by ordinance in 3091.
Yeah, I think last meeting we had some discussion because we'd ignored a lot of the secondary benefits, like being able to participate in the healthcare plan and,
Yep.
you know, all of that. So, and it's like even the council members, though, they don't get the employee healthcare plan, they get the pay your own way version, right?
There.
Yeah.
So does that mean, so what you're saying is we're going to revisit it?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that one's set for revisiting once we have time to think about the secondary benefits and things like that.
I have no more comments in 3.
Okay. Before we get too close to the end, I was gonna see if we're okay with opening back up for public comment, just so anyone waiting online or who came in later or would like to make another public comment. Any dissent or concerns with that?
Open it up.
No? Okay. Let me go through the process again, right? Yeah.
Is there anything,
Huh?
are you opening now? Oh, yeah. are you on-
I think I need to restate the,
Okay.
yeah, restate our little spiel, and then we can open again.
May I make a suggestion too, because nobody else has signed up, you can just do, maybe let,
Oh, do a
they
quick
can
poll.
raise their hand.
Okay. Did anyone still in the room want to make another public comment? If you would like to, okay. So yeah, we'll open back up for public comment. Public comment, please remember, is not interactive question and answer. If you're joining virtually, please use your raise hand feature or use the telephone and press *9. You'll be called upon and asked to state your full name and city of residence for the record. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person with a 20-second warning before your 3 minutes are up. At the 3-minute mark, the chair will ask you to wrap up your final sentence, and you may resume watching the meeting or end your participation at this time. So we had one additional public comment.
I'm reacting to a couple of your discussion. I was appointed to the Broomfield City Council when a councilman committed suicide just after he'd finished the third year of his 4-year term. And I submitted a letter and a resume and interviewed and was appointed to serve that year. And I committed to running for a full year term, which I won the election and served. But Broomfield had a provision that if a resignation is before a councilman is halfway through the term, then there is a special, then that position is included in that election, so that a new person will serve for 2 years, so that you stay on a staggered 4-year cycle. So I think you ought to put language in what you noting, if there's a resignation before a council member is halfway through their term. Also, Kelly and Andrew focused on what the Planning Commission was doing. And what you wrote just talked about all the various boards and commissions that the council will have. And I served on one of theirs, the Building Code Review Board. So you don't have anything written on what all these various boards and commissions should do. And I'm not sure whether you really want to include that, whether it's just give the new council the opportunity to provide or write up the job descriptions for what all those boards and commissions do. And as far as redistricting, I think that Broomfield city manager had somebody who did it, so your city manager could go to Louisville, Arvada, and Lakewood, who have wards and who make adjustments and figure out how they do the process and submit the map and the information periodically to the council for their approval. So that's my comments.
Thank you. Any other audience members would like to, more public comments or?
Just from my own learning, probably I did not completely, or I'm sure I did not completely follow the discussion about how many districts the town should have. And I'm just interested in what the philosophical, so to speak, basis or the rationale behind it is, having more districts versus less districts. I only got one, and that is that there might be a district, Old Town, that doesn't stand up anybody that wants to run. But yeah, maybe it's me not being able to follow you guys. Partly has to do with this year. But what's the rationale to say, okay, we want 3 districts against maybe 6 districts? Yeah. Just interested.
Thank you.
I forgot one item.
Sure.
You have more time.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you if you could decide whether you want Erie to continue to be a town or whether we should be a city. Because that map over there shows that Erie could potentially be 60 to 70,000 people and a true city. Thank you.
No one online?
We have 2 folks online, but nobody has raised their hand for public comment at this point.
Okay. Anyone else in the audience? Andrew?
Andrew Sawish, 824 Dakota Lane. So real quickly, you guys were talking about the a redistricting commission, essentially. I'd recommend looking at Thornton. There are many other communities that do this, but they have stipulations where it requires that they meet every 10 years, once every 10 years. The ordinance has to be done 180 days prior to an election, and it has to be done no later than December 31st, the year prior to a election. So there are stipulations so that the current council doesn't drag its feet, as you had eloquently said earlier. So one of the other things that I know you guys have this as a go back for legal counsel, the condition of having a percentage within the percentage of the vote for an individual as the next runner-up. I would definitely consult legal counsel on that, because that could be an improper condition for running for office. It does become a First Amendment issue at a certain point, so I would definitely consult with them. Then also, if that is something you want to move to, are you going to look at 10% of the total vote, or are you going to do it in a way where it's 10% of the next individual's vote cast? The way that they do the margins of vote here, I've been part of 2 different recounts here at the municipal level, and it was the runner-up minus the winner divided by the total of the winner. And that's how you found out the percentage. It wasn't a percentage of the total vote. It was a percentage of the next runner-up and against the person who previously won. So what distinction there is there. And then regarding Mr. Moore's comments, some of the comments I provided earlier, as well as Ms. Zuniga, yes, there is some abilities of an ordinance providing some emboldenment to a planning commission. And specifically, I'm looking at the planning commission because I was personally a planning commissioner for 2 years. There are a lot of things that can be done, but unless it is specifically said in an ordinance or by a charter that these are the items that must be taken on or should be taken on by a planning commission, they won't be taken on. This is something that we've run into with the previous planning commission that I was on.
20 seconds.
Where the town attorney had said that it was a matter of that board providing and enumerating those powers and authorities to that planning commission. So if there is something that you do feel very passionate about or think that should be addressed in this, that is something you have the purview and power to do right now. So thank you.
Thank you.
Do I have another 20 seconds?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
We want to hear from residents.
I'm following up on one thing I mentioned. In section 313, you talk about executive sessions. That's a description of what's called a study session, where the council can bring in all sorts of people and have a meeting. They can be open or closed. But an executive session is in Broomfield Charter. And this is where usually just the council, the manager, and the attorney, city attorney, are privately meeting to discuss litigation. If the town or the city gets sued, it has to be handled privately with no public involved. So there is a difference between an executive session and a study session, and I think you ought to add a section 3.14 to separate the two. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Commissioner, we have an attendee online who would like to speak. I am going to allow him to talk. It's Mr. Dwayne Drummond.
Okay.
Mr. Drummond, you can unmute yourself and state your name.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, this is Dwayne Drummond, live at 991 Sumner Way, Erie, Colorado. I was just there earlier, we left early, but I got home now. I want to thank you for everything you guys do. You do a great job. It's a lot of work, but I've been watching each week. I just wanted to ask you, input from the citizens. Have you considered, I wrote a note too, Ash, have you considered putting out on Facebook just a little survey to get some input? I mean, questions about district versus ward and so forth, different questions you may have where you want to know what do the people feel, rather than coming up with this complete charter and then having people not being happy with some of the things. Have you considered just putting it out there, let the people put their opinions? I mean, it would be some input. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a current survey out right now for town stuff.
Yeah.
So is that something?
Would we be able to ask the
Gabby,
town to
do
put
that?
out?
If you wanted to, we can work with our communications department, and if you have specific items, we can probably get something together for you, yeah.
Are we allowed to do it ourselves to save the town time and money?
I think it'd be proper to do
No,
it through
I
the
would
town.
not.
chamber.
Yeah, I think
Ourselves.
we'd have to do it through the town.
All right.
So that we're not.
But we could just make a list.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we
you
would
know.
make the questions, but the town would distribute it.
Yeah.
Then collect the,
We will be discussing with the Board of Trustees in February 7th, I think, potential questions. I would say it's already, we don't want to ask so many questions that people get fatigued when they're doing
Right.
the survey. So
Yeah.
we've got a limited amount of space, and we do have a lot of issues to cover.
And
I'm not-
the community survey, we won't have the results back in time for them.
Right, it would be too late.
So,
We
so
wouldn't
this
get
would,
the
I think,
results
are
until-
you guys, are you like a quick, like, hey, take this quick survey? I mean, we could, might be easy to put something on the page for Home Rule Commission that says, take this survey, answer these questions, short,
Yeah.
sweet, to, real short and sweet.
And just
And
keep
that's
it
just on
there
the-
and let it live there. I love that.
Yeah, I'm
And
sure
that's
we
just
can
on
do something
our
like that.
wiki or whatever you want to call it, our
Yeah.
webpage. I'd prefer doing something like that, which is more open than Facebook or
Agreed.
Nextdoor or
Yeah,
social
we can
media.
advertise it
Advertise.
individually on Facebook, Nextdoor, whatever, or through, and ask town to advertise for us as well, but, yeah. Okay, so let's think about questions before our next meeting, and maybe we can have an agenda item to put out a little survey. Sorry,
Do you want to ask a question?
yes.
Yeah.
Huh?
everybody except Kelly gets to go twice.
It's a very formal public comment.
Yeah. And that's kind of why I was like, it's weird sitting back here, I was hoping we would just.
Kelly Zuniga, 1343 Flanagan Court, Erie. So you guys have covered so many different topics, and one of them was whether you do elections on an even and odd year, and I know I've heard arguments either way, one for trying to make it stand out, doing it on the odd years so that it doesn't get lost on the ballot. But there's a real challenge with getting voter turnout. And I think I like the word fatigue that you used, that people get election fatigue. And our turnout on odd years is abysmal. I mean, having 7,000 people out of 30,000 voting to determine who their leaders are going to be, it's really sad. So I would just encourage you to go with the even year, just to try and get more people involved.
Yeah, there was stuff that was submitted, and I'm starting to lean that way too myself, honestly.
We're not supposed to respond.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right, we're breaking all the rules. We gave
We
JC like
are
6
breaking the
minutes.
rules,
and-
yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Winfried Reichelt. Yeah, I just want to kind of second the gentleman that spoke from home and her. I appreciate what everybody does here. It's not like great entertainment, I suppose, maybe some. So it's a great service, and however, yeah, we heard how many or how few people actually go and vote and how few people take part in government. Part of it is probably that people have no idea what is actually going on. I'm kind of one of them. I don't understand the process. And before I came here today, I looked at my phone and tried to find information about what's going on here. And well, I didn't take too much time, but it wasn't good. I mean, it doesn't explain what is going on. I mean, I take, and I did not look at it, that there are video recordings of the sessions, but that doesn't explain what is going on. That doesn't make people understand the process any better. I think we just heard about the fine print that this gentleman mentioned. You want to have one kind of meeting, or you want to call it a certain name versus another one, because that has legal implications. Somehow that should be explained to people in a way that they can understand that, without just saying, okay, I just came home from work, I don't want to deal with this. To recruit a few more people that are actually getting involved. For instance, also from Old Town, and I do not live in Old Town, but, and that's not nice what I'm saying, but I found it a little paternalistic to say, oh, we can't have a district there because nobody's going to run for office from there. That's something like that where people need to get more involved. And like I said, if it's all opaque, of course, people just zoom out, right? Thank you.
Thank you. The town created like infographics and stuff for explaining the process at least, right?
And we had
Would
a
it-
lot on
Yeah.
before the election.
It's still
I
up on
can-
the
Yeah,
website.
it's still up on
Yeah.
our website, yeah.
Maybe I can ask Gabby to link that from our Home Rule Commission page, just so that it's all like a one-stop shop to just,
I thought it was, but
yeah, I don't think the old stuff, like the pre-election info is back up there. And I mean, I've been talking with Gabby about putting information on there. Like I send her the weekly summaries and everything and she puts them on there as well. So it wouldn't be, I don't think it would clutter up that page too much to add some more of the background info and the process info as well. And that way it's a singular repository. Yeah. Any other public comment or anything
Online.
online or no?
no.
Okay. Then yeah, I'll go ahead and close public comment for now, and we'll go through our process, make sure we've got all the, I kind of took notes here and there, so I need to make sure we've got all our decisions codified, and we can send to Hillary. I think the big one we decided was that we would be doing the 3 districts of 2 electeds each. Okay. We want to find a way to enforce the drawing of borders before the election, but there was some good wording given to us that we can try to pull from. And who's going to draw the initial borders? We can leave that up when we discuss the transition section. As far as the vacancy section, we had some public comment talking about using thresholds based on number of votes cast for the leading candidate versus the number of votes cast in total for that specific position. Does anyone have any further thoughts on that? Just want to keep it how we had a kind of total cast for that position. Because the way the way we're planning to stagger things, it should only be 1 candidate per district up for election at a time, right?
Correct.
And so there's not going to be any confusion as to which position you're voting for. And so
Unless you have a
Unless there's a
vacancy.
vacancy, in
Unless
which
there's
case.
But that would be clear, because I would think, and we can write this in, but I would think that whoever gets the most would get the 4-year term, and whoever gets the least in that district would get the 2-year term.
yeah,
I think we already wrote that in.
Did we?
yeah.
I don't think we've really talked how elections work. We were going to go back after we figured out districts.
Yes, that's right. We do need to go back to that. Okay, so
What there was in 3.0, basically in the vacancy section, we didn't really touch upon 6. But yeah, that basically if both seats become vacant in the district, then you definitely do need to
Have another election?
So if, like,
That-
there's that too.
like an addition of subsection 6, if 3 or more vacancies or both seats in a district are vacant.
It's kind of it is, let's
I
see,
think it's already there.
it's already in there.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
But if we feel we want to change the wording,
Where were you looking at?
3056.
Oh,
H7.
gotcha. Okay.
Okay, so any 3 total vacancies, that include mayor, or both from a single district. And then that would automatically trigger a special election.
and then, I don't know if we need to define it in here or not about how it's ranked. Basically, the person who gets the most votes in the districts gets the longer term.
I think that would be in the election section.
Yeah, so what did we have in the election section?
Pretty bare bones right now.
Okay, yeah, because we hadn't decided what we were gonna do with elections. Okay, so I think we need to revisit election section now that we've got a decision as far as districts.
Which one was that?
2,
2.
yeah. And it's, yeah, it's
Ah,
like
there it is.
4 subsections.
Can I make a suggestion too that we figure out very soon on odd or even years too?
Vote on that?
Can we discuss it?
Yeah, I
I
would
think
like
we
to
should.
discuss it.
Before we vote?
Yeah,
We can
that's
do
why
it.
I just wanted people to think on it before because I think we're gonna come back to do elections, right?
Yeah, I think when we come back to do elections, we can decide on the year.
That's where we
Discuss and
define
vote
it.
if needed?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's where we would decide. But if you have something you wanted to say before we decide on it,
Our
please.
public commenters already said it.
Yeah,
They
I
did.
agree with them.
Yeah, on that point, I did read the document that was submitted by Mr. Sawich. And the gist of it is, as he said, even years, you get more representative turnout of the population
yeah,
in voting, whereas odd years, you get slightly, or the minority groups are less represented.
yeah.
So, I'd like to look more, but it does lean in favor of even years, so.
I would like to, personally, I would like to protect for issues to come up in the odd years as well then, like, I guess I'm not sure how it currently works, but if we do, like, if there's a citizen-led ballot initiative that comes to be put on the ballot for Erie, they have to wait for the next regular election, or would it happen, they could do it in an off-cycle year?
I can do it in any off-cycle year.
Okay. So as long as that's protected, like any recall or ballot initiatives can happen at any year, I think.
I think a recall creates a special election. If it's successful and they have the signatures, I think that it creates a special election.
And I think that's a separate section
Yeah.
forthcoming.
Yeah.
Right, I didn't want to go into the recall process, but I just wanted to make sure that even if we do
Right.
even year elections, that there's the possibility for citizen initiatives to come on, to be on the ballot on odd years.
An example was TNAC.
Yeah.
We were debating as to whether it should be this last year or this year, 22 or 23.
Yeah.
And so we can do either year.
Okay. Perfect.
I think I had another friend I was discussing odd or even years out there, and to her it was worth it to like have less propaganda out there, have some breaks from
Yeah.
it, so.
That was another thing, I think that's had come up during our discussion, that if we're on an odd year, off-cycle from national elections, then it helps enforce that this is a nonpartisan election, separate from national politics. But again, yeah, then you get, what, 60% of the turnout, though?
Yeah, and you have commercials forever.
Sorry, and you only see the commercials for an hour. Yeah, that's true. Then you're seeing political ads all the time.
All the time.
Okay. I think, yeah, when we revisit the election section, let's make that decision. So everyone bring your best arguments forward for that. Let's see. I know I had some more notes on here on something we decided, I just can't remember. Okay, so yeah, in the town council vacancy section, 3054, we were gonna strike the time frame for the mayoral vacancy, because no matter when it happens, Mayor Pro Tem becomes mayor.
Yes.
And then in subsection 5, the vacancy for the council member, strike mayor, it's only for the council member because that has the time frame.
So we should
Oh,
probably
I-
move 4 to 3, swap 3 and 4 so the council members are next to each other. It just may flow better. that's all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, okay, so yeah, so put 4 up.
In 4, though, if I missed this, forgive me, but we didn't, did we state that basically council then elects the next mayor pro tem?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah,
It
I
should
think,
just fall
because, I
through
think
the
because,
311A.
Yeah,
yeah,
that makes fine, as long as it's stated in there that.
Yeah.
because, yeah, I think that this, we've defined elsewhere the the selection process for mayor pro tem.
Yeah, no.
And so if the mayor pro tem position becomes.
Gotcha, that's right, that's
yeah.
why we're not putting it here. Okay, all right, now I remember.
Quick question, I think, Ben, this might have been what you were talking about earlier. In our definitions, did we decide that the mayor is part of the council? Because that will,
Yeah.
Right? That's what you were trying to say
The council
earlier.
is defined as all 7 members.
Yeah,
including
but
the mayor.
Council members are things and mayor is thing.
yeah.
Okay.
So we've
So
got
we're
the town
okay.
council, which includes the councilors and the mayor, yes.
And a council member, it's just the council.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Got it, we're good.
Okay.
Move on.
Cool. So striking or mayor from 5, moving subsection 4 up so that the 2 sections defining the council members are together. Yeah, so when the mayor pro tem becomes mayor, it's filled by, so her little italic comment under subsection 4, what happens with the mayor pro tem's vacant seat? We decided that, yes, it will be filled per the appointment process for regular councilors.
It's actually, okay, you're talking about the council position itself, not mayor
Yeah.
pro tem?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, agreed.
Yeah, because when you become mayor, you're no longer councilor,
Yep.
so.
Makes sense.
Okay, so then I guess 3055A, down at the end there, she also had like an italicized, does this appointment process apply to unsuccessful mayor candidates? And I think we're gonna strike that because we said the
Yep.
mayor is
Mayor
its
pro
own
tem.
process, yeah. And then I guess in 3055B, do we have to specify if a special election is ordered? Because,
I think as soon as practical should cover that, shouldn't it?
well, I mean, like, there's no word special.
I
So-
don't think so.
Yeah.
Because we have
we
had a separate process for regular elections. I don't know if we had to
I don't
separate.
think we need to specify it because I think it's implied based upon where it is
Okay.
in the section.
Does
Yeah.
it hurt to specify?
And it also says as soon as practical, which may be a special election.
If a special, yeah, if an election is ordered. So I guess, yeah, it doesn't really matter if it's a special election, because the only
Yeah.
election
Yeah,
that
we
can
don't
be
order
ordered
regular
is.
Is a
elections.
special election.
Yeah,
Yeah.
regular elections just happen. Okay. I think that's as far as we've gotten.
And just to point out, because we had talked about it when we talked about 6, the vacancies, we do have in section 301.3 that if there are, to restore staggered positions, the 4-year term shall go to the candidates with the highest number of votes, who's already there. I
Okay.
saw it somewhere, but
Perfect. I knew we'd talked about it. I couldn't remember if it was in our, we've looked at so many charters that it's hard to remember which one was in ours and, okay. I think that's all we had decided then, right?
I think so, up through 3, yep.
We're gonna stick with the 10% of total ballots cast threshold for now, as our threshold for appointment.
I think Andrew did have a good point. We should probably double check with Hillary to make sure that we,
And Debbie, I think.
or whomever, we should double, triple check, just to make sure.
Currently, it's covered by state statute. There's a percentage, and it's an election law that's in state statute, and that's the percentage we apply that
That
trustee
makes sense to
Sowich
me.
was returning.
That we
was
would
referring
apply
to.
that to this.
Agreed.
Okay.
Okay. So do we need to pull that wording, or just, do we have to, if we don't say anything, state statute applies?
I would suggest we ask Hillary if that statute should be referenced there, because it's
Well,
an
what if the
election.
state changes?
Yeah.
Do we want the charter to change with it, or do we want the charter to stay the same?
I would think my personal view is go with what the state says. If the state changes it, there would be a reason for that.
But then we should just say whatever following
Follow the
Yeah,
state.
state
reference.
statute,
Exactly.
whatever that is.
As
Exactly.
amended, does a lot of
Yeah.
work there.
As amended. Which section would that go in then? That's gonna be in like
It's under
305,
305, 5A,
3055A.
Sounds right.
subsection I.
So we'd want to reference state statute as to the thresholds.
Now that
Personally-
I think about those, actual thresholds are what trigger recounts.
Yeah. So that's why I was thinking like, it's different for recounts versus what threshold
Yep.
we want to set
Yep.
for an appointment.
Yeah, now that I think about those, yeah, those state statutes, that's what triggered, it's a percentage of the.
Triggers
is it-
automatic recount, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And how it's calculated?
Yeah.
That's usually smaller.
But it's
It's-
usually
it's-
like, it has to do with, yeah, it's, you're
It's a-
talking about tiny percentages within a threshold of the winning vote getter.
Yeah.
Of total votes cast for that position.
So for a vacancy, I don't, like, I looked for some at the revised statutes around vacancies, and I didn't see anything that defined a threshold for something like this.
That would, as Andrew said, that's probably a really good question for Hillary.
Yeah.
It is for.
So let's, yeah, we'll ask Hillary about any legalities around setting a threshold for an appointment process. I mean, probably gonna have to go through this list again, and jumping back and forth. Okay. But I think that's all we had decided so far. Okay, so let's try.
So should we rehash and
Yeah, let's go through it real quickly again.
call her,
Yeah,
rehash the rehash?
Ash's rehash, yeah. So, 3 districts, enforce the drawing the borders before the election. We can look at Louisville's section 6.4. And that also has wording on what triggers a forced redistricting. And so we may want to put in some wording, because we do get, the council does get reports for population changes yearly, right, from the town?
We can do that.
We can,
have
okay.
current-
So if, yeah, we're keeping track of all of that, then we can make sure that we take that into account when we're doing the redistricting, what triggers the forced redistricting. And then initial borders, we'll figure it out in our vacancy, or in our transition section. We need to ask Hillary about legalities around setting thresholds for filling vacancies, based on number of ballots cast. And then, let's see. Sorry, I'm a little less organized today. The mayor selection I guess most of what we talked about after that was in the vacancy section. So vacancy section, we'll move 305 subsection 4 up. And from that 3054, we'll strike the time frame for the mayor vacancy. The mayor pro tem's vacant seat, who fills the mayor's vacancy, will then be appointed by the normal council member vacancy process. And then what is currently 3053 will move down to 3054. And then 3055 will strike the word mayor, so that only defines the time frame for a vacancy of the council members. And 3055A will strike the, or I guess we've already answered the question that she had posed, Hillary had posed down at the bottom there. And then, yeah, 3056, we agree with the wording that 3 or more or both from a specific district are vacant, then we get a special election. And I think that's it. Did I miss anything? Please tell me. Okay.
I think you're doing a great job, Ash. This is a lot to keep track of, and you're doing a great job of keeping us, on target, and you're doing a good job of recapping, and I just would like to openly say that I really appreciate the leadership.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Plus one.
Thank you. So I think that ends our recap, which was the last item on our agenda.
What are we doing about open space?
We were going to discuss that at a future meeting.
Okay.
Because we have a section that I would like to review, and we can set that for a targeted agenda item, because I think we want to dedicate some time to that.
That's fine. And I did send out a new one, so people
Okay.
should use that rather than the other one.
Oh, regarding that, I had some comments from residents about including trails in that designation for open space, because
Yeah, it is.
it does cover it.
It should cover it. I mean,
Okay.
Maybe I do it without thinking. I'm going to make a note.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, because trails are a big selling point in the town, and it's covered under our current, development,
I mean,
kind of.
Yeah.
OSTAB has a T in it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
OSTAB has the T and Prost.
Right,
I don't know if people are familiar with Prost, but
no, what does it stand for?
it's like the comprehensive plan for parks, recreation,
Okay.
open space and trails.
Perfect.
I know you're going to talk about it at another time, but if you would entertain a couple of comments about the proposed sections for open space that you pulled from the Louisville Charter, because I'm quite familiar with that one. The detailed provisions regarding designating open space properties as different categories, even though that's in the Louisville Charter 20 years after it's been written, they've never done that.
We struck it.
Because it's too complicated.
Yes.
And so, yeah, that.
We agreed.
Really
Yeah.
diving down into too much into managing property versus setting up the framework that really sets the aspirations for the community.
Yeah,
Every single person literally that I've talked to about it has agreed.
I mean, it was probably for a good, they wanted to do the same thing that we want to do, is we want to emphasize our open space, and the TNAC, vote shows that that's kind of universal in town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't want to make it onerous and
Right, and
cumbersome
that's
to
allowed.
actually apply.
And Patrick's also reviewing it, so.
Okay, I'll take a look at our long-term schedule for meetings and make sure we have a specific meeting for that, so we can have our, any of our town representatives, town staff, relevant town staff present for that meeting. So Amy, I'll take a look through their future meeting.
Yes, I was going to ask if we could know, so I can prepare the agenda for next week. And Hillary didn't get our revised agenda, our revised meeting schedule. So next week, on the calendar, it says we're going to talk about the initiative, referendum, and recall section. I don't know, I'll be honest with you, I didn't look ahead today to see how large that section is, but we may be able to move
Yeah.
something else. I will,
I think we have Hillary next week, so I think we want to talk that one.
we will have her virtually, yes.
Okay,
But we will not have Malcolm.
Okay.
So we don't, if there's anything you want to move up to that meeting that's going to require his input, he will not be available.
okay. Then I'll look through the long-term agenda again and see where we can slot in all of those.
And do we need to review 4 and 5 as well, or?
I think so.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
in
so.
light of the comments,
Yeah, and I had comments anyway, so.
I
Yeah.
would like to.
So if we've got time next week after referendum and recall, we can do a continuation of our
Okay.
review of our running agenda, or
Okay.
running draft. But yeah, Amy, I'll work with you to get that set up for next week. Okay, I think with our recap complete and future business addressed, I'll call for adjournment. We're done for today.